All right, hello. Today we're going to go through CSS Grid. Last time we went through CSS Flexbox. Today we're going to go through CSS Grid, so let's just go right into it. Okay, so like Flexbox, we have to first set the display to the kind that we're using. So in this case, we're using Grid, so just do display Grid, and that should work. Okay, now we want to add columns with Grid template columns. All this does is define how many columns you want. So in this case, we want to have 3 columns that are each 100 pixels wide. So we just do this, do spaces in between, and there we go. Now we have 3 columns. Yep. So like grid template columns, there's also grid template rows. This is just stating how many rows you want. So in this case, we want 2 rows that are 50 pixels tall each. So 50 pixels, 50 pixels. And there we go. Okay, now we want to use CSS Grid units to change the size of the columns and rows. So there's all these different options we can use. We can use percentages, we can use auto, and we can use FR, and we can use pixels. FR is like a fractional unit. I tend to use FR the most just because it seems to work the best, and it seems to be the most responsive. So here we wanted to use 1 FR, 100 pixels, and then 2 FR, and then, yeah, I think that should work. Oh, I need to get rid of these commas. No commas in between them. Just like that, yep. Okay, now we want to have a column gap using the grid column gap property. So just do grid column gap, and then set it to 20 pixels. And that should space them out, yep. Now we want to do the same thing except for the rows. So here just do grid row gap and do that for 5 pixels. So there's space in between there. So now we want to use the shorthand grid gap. So the first value is the row, the gap between the row, and then the second value is the gap between the column. So first we want 10 pixels in between the rows, and we want 20 pixels between the columns. There we go. All right, now we want to use grid column to control spacing. So there's like, imagine these lines that the content is broken up into. So this would be the first line, and the second line, the third line, and the fourth line. And then this is like the first line on top, and then the second line in between, the third line on bottom. And we can use the grid column to kind of say where we want an item to span to. So grid column on the 5th item, so this item, we want it to take up 2 spaces here. So to do that, we can set it to 2 4th, I believe. Yep, there we go. And now it takes up that space. So let's see if that works. Yep. Now we want to do the same thing except for with grid row. So grid row does the same thing, except, rows. So this should be 2 4 again, I think. Yeah. So now it takes up that much space. Let's see if that works. Yep. All right, now we want to align items horizontally using justify self. So what this does is you can either center an item in its container, or like have it be at the start of it or at the end. So in this case, we want to have it center, and there we go. Now it's centered in that little box that it's in. All right, same thing with align an item vertically using align self. So this is align self instead of like justify self, I think. So align self, same thing, except now we want it to be end. So it should shift down, yep. All right, now we want to align all items horizontally using justify items. So the way that's done is you go into the main container, and here you can specify how you want your items to be justified for all of them. So in this case, we want them all to be centered. And now they're all scrunched in instead of just one of them. Now we use align items to do it vertically. So same thing, go into the container and do align items. This is for the rows part, and we want it to be end, so now they should all go down. Yep. All right, now we want to divide the grid into an area template. So the way that's done is by doing this. Like you can name them different things. For the challenge, all we want to do is change this advert into a dot, so that it takes up that space, but it's just nothing there. It's just an empty cell. So let's see if that works. All right, now we want to place items in grid areas using the grid area property. So this is how we actually put this item inside this area. So for this, we want to have a grid area property of footer. So now it should be down there. Yep. So now wherever footer is here, that's where that item is going to be. So if I change that to header, then it would probably be on top. I want to try that. Header. So now it moves it up to the top. But for the challenge, we want it to be footer. So pretty cool thing there. All right, now we want to use grid area without creating an areas template. So we can use this like shorthand thing where the first value is the horizontal line to start at, second one's vertical line to start at, third one horizontal line to start at, and this fourth one here would be vertical line to end at. So for this challenge, we want to go into item 5 here, and we want to do grid area, and we want it to start at the third line, and we want it to end at the fourth line. But first we want to do the vertical, so we want to start at the first one, and then go and horizontal, so 4, and then end at the fourth vertical line. So it should work like that. And it looks like it turned into that footer part. So let's try that. I wonder if I just need a semicolon. All right, now we want to reduce repetition using the repeat function. So for this, all we wanted to use is this repeat function, and we want to have these 3 columns here, but instead use the repeat function for it. So we want to repeat 3 times the 1FR. So that should work. Yep. All right, now we want to use this min-max function for responsiveness. It's pretty cool. I tend to use it quite frequently. So for this, we just want to put min-max in here. And then the first one is the minimum width it has. So that we want to have for 90. And we want the maximum to be 1FR. And then we'll see how it looks when we change this width here. So now it moves with it, I think. Let's see if it works. Yep. All right, now we want to create flexible layouts using Autofill. So for this, all we want to do is change this 3 here to Autofill and see how it looks here. And then, yeah, now it drops down if it's too small. So that's pretty cool. Now instead of Autofill, we want to use Autofit. I think Autofit is the one I tend to reach for the most, just because it looks the nicest. See, if it gets too small, then it drops down, but then it also takes up as much space as it can. So that one is really nice, Autofit, and using this min-max part. So it's pretty cool. Oh, we should only do it on container 2, I guess. Ah, gosh darn. Okay. So Autofit here. And this was, what, Autofill? Was this 3? Oh, this should be Autofit with a dash. There we go. All right, now we want to use media queries to create responsive layouts. Here we have 2 media queries. This is for like if the screen width is 300 pixels or 400 pixels, how does it look? So for the challenge, if it's 400 pixels or more, so this one, we want the top row to be the header. So instead of advert here, we want it to be header. And we want the footer area to occupy the bottom row. So we'll put footer here. And we'll see if that works here. Yep. All right, now we want to create a grid within grids. So the way this is done, you just take an item that's already in a grid and you put display grid on it. So we'll do display grid first of all. And now we can do the grid template columns to add some columns to this grid. So we'll do auto and 1FR for those. So there we go. Now it looks like that. Next up, we're going to do the introduction to their well, next up we're going to go through, at least look at some of these responsive web design projects. I'm going to kind of show you how to do them and go through them a little bit with you, but that's all I got for today, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye.